Hello, this is Georgina, part-time esoteric content creator and part-time Scarlet Woman, and you're watching the Darling YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking all about Hermetic Qabalah. And this is part of my Occult 101 series, which is essentially where I introduce YouTube to little various paradigms, topics, and traditions of modern occultism in a quick little bite-sized format so that people can realize, oh, this is a topic I'm really interested to, and then springboard off that into deep study of that. So you can kind of find out where your path is, or if you're a more experienced practitioner, get a little grasp of what else is out there, and kind of have a broader understanding of the modern occult community. I had someone on Twitter call this series the Khan Academy of Occultism, which that really entertained me, and that's kind of what I'm going for, but a little more fun. This isn't learning math. We've got some fun stuff going on. So anyways, what is Hermetic Qabalah? Well, before we talk about Hermetic Qabalah specifically, let's talk about what Kabbalah is in general. So Kabbalah is, as it is translated from Hebrew, to receive, and it is the received tradition of mysticism that originates in Judaism. This system of mysticism was passed down privately amongst rabbis for millennium and was kept very, very secret for a very long time. It has been used to kind of decode the Bible and understand the deep messages of the Torah, to make amulets, to even make full-on golems. That there's this amazing folk tale called the Golem of Prague, where there were anti-Semitic attacks against a village populated by Jewish people, and so a rabbi used the power of the Kabbalah to make a golem, which was essentially an entity that he completely created that took down the anti-Semites and protected the village. Though golem making is really not where you start and is very advanced and highly dangerous. But also this stuff has been used to create rituals. If you've ever done the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which I think a lot of my viewers will at least be vaguely familiar with, you've actually messed with Kabbalah. Or if you've read tarot, a lot of our understanding of modern tarot that comes through the Golden Dawn has a huge Kabbalistic correspondence layer to it, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but I'm not going to dive super deep into all the tarot stuff. But regardless, I mean, Kabbalah is ubiquitous in modern occultism. Without Kabbalah, we wouldn't have the system we have today. So let's talk about it. First of all, there are 3 Kabbalahs, and we're going to be focusing on the third. There is the Jewish Kabbalah, spelled with a K. That is the Jewish mystical tradition. There are a variety of schools within Jewish Kabbalah. It's not all the same. There's Christian Kabbalah, which is spelled with a C. That really came up in the Renaissance, I think. And it was very much tied to alchemy, and it shows up a lot in Gnosticism. Then there's Kabbalah with a Q, which is the Hermetic Qabalah system, which most occultists use. That comes from mostly the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn did a lot of work in developing these rich corresponding systems, and they made it so, like, if you look at Kabbalah, you can really transcribe that onto any system, because the spheres of Kabbalah translate into chakras, they translate into the planets, which is how I personally learned them, because I just kind of had a familiarity with planetary correspondence. So when I saw the planets layered on top of the Tree of Life, which I'll talk about a bit in a second, it really made it click for me. If you're a Thelemite, you're really familiar with Hermetic Qabalah. It's very important there. You even see it a little bit in Wicca. I've even seen like left-hand path Satanist types using Kabbalah. So really, everyone's into it. I'm not going to talk about New Age Kabbalah or like the Kabbalah Center or anything like that. I did a podcast reviewing one of their books a long time ago that I can link below. But I have a lot of thoughts on that, and that's kind of a different beast than classical occultism. So let's break into it. So when we talk about Hermetic Qabalah, there are 2 things that we need to separate: the practical Kabbalah and the theoretical Kabbalah. The theoretical Kabbalah is the metaphysics in the way of looking at things like the Tree of Life to kind of map our understanding of consciousness, the universe, and the spiritual world. And then you've got the practical Kabbalah, which is how you're going to use that in your mystical practice, kind of the astrology of Kabbalah that really kind of originates in the Sefer Yetzirah, or like using it in rituals like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, using it to create talismans, which you see a lot in Solomonic practices that have a Kabbalistic influence on them, or to just like use them in creating spell work or any other variety of things. The practical Kabbalah is kind of where the exciting stuff is, I would say, and kind of where a lot of these more occult-minded people are really interested. But to be able to use the practical Kabbalah and make this work in your practice, you have to understand some of the theoretical Kabbalah and some of the metaphysics involved in Kabbalah. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit, and I'm going to explain what is called the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is a diagram that explains the Kabbalistic view of the world and how Kabbalah works. The Tree of Life comes from this idea that God, with a capital G, the Abrahamic God, goes through the world in these 10 emanations. These emanations are not the same as God, but it's the way God kind of filters through the world. An important thing to note is that you do not worship these emanations, or as they are properly called, the Sephirot, or singular, the Sephirah. You don't worship them. They are not gods or entities on their own, though all the Sephirah kind of correspond to angels, demons, deities, and planetary bodies. So you can worship those, but you don't worship the actual Sephirot, because the Sephirot is just the way that God is filtering into the world. I think that's a big beginner misconception. The tree is further divided into what is known as the four worlds, which are kind of like the planes of existence. They are divided into 22 paths, which are kind of like the connecting threads between the Sephirot, or the main emanations. The paths really vary depending on what system you're looking at and what these paths correspond to. However, a unifying thing is each of these paths are represented by a Hebrew letter. The Hebrew letters have huge significance in Kabbalah. They all correspond to tarot cards, they correspond to astrological significators, they correspond to gender. And these letters have so much value because it is believed that before there was nothing, God literally spoke the universe into existence. So through these letters, we are becoming like God and creating on our own. So the alphabet is so important in Kabbalah. Also, all the letters correspond to numbers in a system called gematria. These numbers can be used to create complicated magical formulas, which you see a lot in traditions like Golden Dawn or Thelema. Paths all vary depending on your system. A big one that I find super notable is in the Hermetic Qabalah, Malkut, which I'll talk about in a second, connects to Yesod and the rest of the trees. However, in Jewish Kabbalah, there's no connection there. There is no path there. So basically, these paths are super complicated and vary a lot, and I don't have the time to go through them, but basically the 22 letters have so much value. If you want to learn a lot about the 22 letters, there's a famous Kabbalistic text called the Ha-Bahir that explains them so well. Each of the letters even have like little personalities and stories behind them. I know in the Zohar, there's a section where the letters sort of introduce themselves in this really cute way, and they're like, there's a big tradition in Kabbalah of using stories and narratives to explain mystical phenomena. The tree is also divided into pillars. These pillars are gender-based, though when we talk about metaphysical gender, we're not talking about physical gender, we're talking about kind of like principles, or a way that some people prefer to hear it in a way that's a little less uncomfortable for them, called active and receiving. And if you want to get thelemic about it, think of it like a phallus and a yoni, right? One is doing the push out, and one is receiving it and holding it and restricting it. So that's why on the right pillar, I think that's going to be your right. I'm filming this backwards, so I'm so sorry if I did the wrong side. So the right is the kind of male side, or the active side. This is what grows. If you're familiar with astrological terms, think of this as your benefics. It's what expands and gives the universe everything. Then in the middle, you've got these kind of like in-between positions, sort of like the magical child. It's the combination of the two pillars and pushes it out into gender neutrality. And then on the left side, I'm really hoping I got that right when I'm filming. I'm really hoping. Okay, you have the feminine side, or the kind of malefic side. It restricts and acts as containers. It makes things practical so that there's not constant expansion, and gives rules and structure to the universe. So that's a very bare bones tree of life. And as I said, like, it gets divided into sections that are the four worlds, which correspond to kind of the various planes of existence. They also correspond to four parts of the soul, which is a big thing in Hermetic Qabalah. So the tree can get really complicated really fast. So what does all this mean for your practice? Well, when you look at all of this, it's a way to conceptualize things. It's a way to visualize kind of the stereotypical right-hand path of the mystic, right? Because when you climb this tree, you get close to nothing, which is the annihilation of the ego and the return to the source, the return to God, the return to kind of like this idealized world and this dissolved mystic ego. All these spheres have amazing correspondence systems. If you understand this tree, right, like as I said, like there's planets for all of them. So you can look at this tree and go, okay, I get planetary magic. You can look at this tree and go, oh, I get the chakra system. Though granted, there are a lot of chakras. There isn't just one chakra system. I made a whole video on that. And understanding this tree gives you the key to that more complicated practical aspect of Kabbalah. The tree also corresponds to parts of the Tetragrammaton, or the unspeakable name of God. So all of this feels very kind of like the math of occultism, or very dry, but it's all a huge gateway into such a deeper understanding of the magical world that I think it's important to kind of look at, memorize. A quick way to remember it is to just draw the tree and just draw it every now and again, or use, as I said, the tarot corresponds to the paths in the kind of Hermetic path system. So you can use tarot cards as flashcards, right? Like say you're a tarot reader who understands the meaning of the cards, right? Okay, so let's look at what all these cards correspond to. There are a lot of correspondence charts online, or you can pick up a copy of Liber 777 that can do these connections for you. And then you can look at that and go, okay, well that gives me a deeper understanding of tarot and a deeper and quicker understanding of the tree itself. So all of this really ties together in a very syncretic, beautiful way. And so I feel like this is a very, very sparse, simple introduction to a system that can be used to map consciousness, to use in your workings, and to really help you get a deeper understanding for mysticism. But that's simple, and I think that's all for today. Let me know if you want more videos on this, because it's really, really hard to explain one of the most complex systems of mysticism in like 15 minutes. It's just, there's so much happening that it's difficult to do this so quickly. So anyways, if you liked this, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @darling. You can support my podcast on Spotify and YouTube. It's called Occultism with a Side of Salt. Or support me directly through Ko-Fi, a donation platform, so you can help me do all of this, because as of right now, I'm not monetized, I'm not making money off this, I'm doing this for fun, but it does take up a lot of time, and I put a lot of work into all of this. So anyways, this has been Georgina. You've been watching Darling. If you liked this video, like, comment, subscribe, and if you're subscribed for 93 days, you'll meet your holy guardian angel.